Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Jim Francis, Chief Research Officer of CRB Monitor, to discuss trends in the cannabis space and what it means for investors going forward. Jim, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Great. Thank you, Jill. It's great to see you too.
All right, you got it. And cannabis equities have been on a roller coaster ride over the last couple of months. What's been happening in this space?
Well, I would say cannabis investors, they would tell you that there have been two ongoing major themes that are affecting share prices. Number one, the announcement that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has recently recommended, that's in late August, that the DEA reschedule THC from Schedule 1, which is a dangerous narcotic, to something much lighter. And secondly, there's the ongoing effort by our leaders in Congress to enact the latest version of the Safe Banking Act, which they would call SAFER. While both of these would be game changers for the cannabis industry, each faces some significant challenges as they progress. And that's why we always see volatility in this industry. It's just unavoidable at this point.
Let's start with cannabis rescheduling. Can you tell us what's happening with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So toward the end of August, it was reported that the HHS had sent a letter to the Drug Enforcement Administration recommending that the DEA remove the Schedule 1 designation for THC and reassign it to, let's say, a kinder and gentler status like Schedule 3. What this means is that cannabis would no longer be considered an illegal narcotic with zero medical use, but rather would be considered legal with a doctor's prescription. So that's really what I would call a game changer. Naturally, this news resonated with investors, and they started buying en masse, as they always do when there's a great piece of good news. And so on August 30, and for the next couple of weeks, we saw this incredible spike in tier one companies like Canopy Growth and Curaleaf and Trulieve and Tilray, just about all of them, including the cannabis-themed ETFs. They had this tremendous spike. And this combination of game-changing news, but you also have the wide bid-ask spreads, and you've got frantic short covering, and really low stock prices that cause the buying frenzy and the sometimes 200% returns in early September. But another thing that's important to note here is that is there a critical impact from rescheduling, the implication it has on the taxation of cannabis-related revenues, and that's going to have a direct upward, effect on cannabis revenue. Currently, CRB's revenues are taxed under IRS Rule 280E, which prohibits cannabis businesses from claiming deductions and credits for trade or business expenses that other legal businesses can claim. So anything that's related to transacting in something illegal is not going to be eligible for deductions and credits. And so that has a major impact on cannabis businesses these days. So when they remove it from Schedule 1, if they remove it, what we see is taxation go way down, and the 280E exemption would then kick in, and you'd see this impact on net earnings. Now, where it's not going to have a direct impact would be on, let's say, the Canadian-based businesses such as Canopy Growth and Tilray. But otherwise, businesses like Cresco, the MSOs, the bigger ones like Curaleaf and Trulieve, those CRBs without with U.S. touch points will have the profound impact from the tax break.
Moving on to safe banking, it seems like we've heard about this for a few years at this point. Is there anything newsworthy lately?
Well, there is. There's a bill that's been in the works that should actually make it to the floor. It's called SAFER. This bill has bipartisan support. It would remove the penalties that financial institutions currently face when they process cannabis transactions. It has a few little additional features in it that are going to be beneficial to not only the cannabis businesses, but financial institutions and also people who are just customers of cannabis businesses, because they will no longer just be cash only. So this law, it's important to note, though, does not mean the legalization of marijuana. That's probably another few years down the road. But it does provide a risk-free means for cannabis businesses and banks and credit card companies to transact. So legal cannabis would no longer need to be a cash and debit card only business. Now, where does it stand? Well, this could lead us into what might have been your next question, which is why in mid-October, cannabis equities really took a nosedive and pretty much gave back everything that they got in early September. And I'll just go into that. One major factor, I would say, is the recent turmoil in the U.S. House of Representatives. And while SAFE Banking Act has bipartisan support, what we've seen, though, is the installation of a new conservative Speaker of the House, which was not positive news for overall, cannabis-related sentiment. And as we know, sentiment in these tier one companies, is basically what drives prices. And so the market did not appreciate this particular choice of the Republican Party for the Speaker of the House. But with that said, we're just about to hit earnings season, so there could be some positive news out there, and maybe we'll see a bit of a reversal. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But unfortunately, the market tended to give just about everything back that we saw in late August, early September.
So, Jim, what does this mean for investors going forward?
Well, there's always good news to report, in spite of the fact that legal cannabis at the federal level is still a ways away. Now, rescheduling can happen without a congressional vote, which I think is tremendous news. We might be able to see the DEA pull that off within, let's say, a year or so. And as I have mentioned in the past, the number of cannabis-related businesses that CRB Monitor tracks globally is now up to about 80,000, which is up more than 10% since we last spoke, which was in April. This industry continues to employ hundreds of thousands of people. It's a global industry. There are billions of dollars in tax revenues. In fact, there are only 4 states in the United States that have a full ban on marijuana. That's Idaho, South Carolina, Kansas, and Wyoming. That's where the only place where marijuana is fully illegal. So we're seeing these trends, and I think it's unavoidable, right? The industry is not going anywhere anytime soon.
And finally, any other closing remarks about cannabis equities we should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, as we've said in the past, cannabis equities are inherently volatile, right? Given the various headwinds that affect the industry, which, currently the macroeconomy is not completely out of the woods yet. The regulatory environment, which was kind of the main focus of this discussion, which, tends to make things move in all directions. And also the illicit market, which is still a challenge for the legal cannabis businesses. But I do believe that the illicit market will start to recede when you see federal legalization come into play. And so those factors that keep prices down, I hope, go away. And the one last thing that I'll mention is the revelation that THC could potentially be rescheduled and possibly descheduled, meaning no schedule at all. And it will become a legal drug. That makes it possible for industries such as big pharma and tobacco and beverages to step in with lots of capital and apply their considerable operational footprint to this emerging industry. And we've talked about this before, and I'm very bullish, particularly on the beverage industry, but I could see when cannabis is rescheduled and suddenly it's the DEA believes that there's some useful purpose out there, the FDA starts to perform its tests and approves it for certain treatments, then it's very easy to see how large pharmaceutical companies would step in, start cultivating marijuana so that they can extract the THC and sell their own forms of these drugs. So what I would say is that, this market, there's a lot of waiting around here, and we do have to kind of weather the storms, which seem to come around all the time. But still, I believe investors would be wise to just buy some, ignore it, and just hold on, and eventually, it might take years, but cannabis is a good investment.
All right, Jim, appreciate the updates as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.
Thank you, Jill.